And so I went out to work for this George Foreman grill. My wife decided it was the best thing in the world because it really did work.
It does work.
Grease would go away, and for your protein, flavorful, and you didn't have to leave it on for long.
Mm-hmm.
And people would tell me, I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me to get a George Foreman. I said, George Foreman, oh, the grill.
Right.
One thing after another, start selling. One guy told me, I think you sold 10,000 of those things, George. I said, what?
Wow.
Then it's 10 million.
Mm.
And then the last, before we sold the grill was like 120 million of those things sold worldwide. I thought maybe I'd get 16, that I'd give one to my aunt, one to my cousin and my mom, and then I'd take them to training camp, but I had no idea this thing would be so successful.
There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. People always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's 2 words, hard work and dedication. If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneurs in Finance. And we have a very, very special guest today, Mr. George Foreman, heavyweight champ, still heavyweight champ in my mind. I'm a big boxing fan. As you guys know, I've interviewed a couple other famous boxers, but this hits home for me. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce George Foreman to the show. Hi, George.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to have you here. George, you probably get asked a lot of questions about your illustrious career, and we'll get into maybe some of them, but I want to focus more. I'm fascinated more about parallels in the mindset of winning in boxing as you can parallel into business. And there's no other person that I'd love to pick your brain about, because I think you've done successfully both, arguably. So, can we talk about, kind of the mindset of overcoming obstacles, and how did you parlay that into even the business side of it?
I think probably the biggest mistake anyone would make is to think that business would be any different than a boxing match.
Right, okay.
It's a fight. It's all about getting up, brushing off your pants, and going the next round. But don't look for anything easy in business in the same way you couldn't look for anything easy in boxing.
I think you couldn't have said it better. As an entrepreneur myself, and the viewership here, I think a lot of people think it's easy to start a business, right? They think, they see people who are already successful and they think it comes quick, right? And they don't realize the challenges that come along with that, which I gotta assume is the same in boxing, because at some point you get knocked out or you get hit hard, right? But you just got to keep getting up, right?
Yeah, I learned from we used to live in the neighborhood, and they were just rows of little shotgun houses.
Uh-huh.
And would you believe, what do you call these vacuum cleaner salesmen would come down, and you could see him maybe 2 blocks away going from house to house trying to sell a vacuum cleaner. Mm-hmm. And the thing was, no one had even a rug.
Wow.
It was all linoleum, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And curtains. But he never lost his enthusiasm for having the door slammed. But at the same time, he was the most exciting person in the world, because he was trying to make things exciting so that he can sell.
Right.
So it's about getting the door slammed in your face, but yet moving to the next house.
Keep moving, right? Keep moving. Did you, growing up, obviously, with your career, you originally didn't start out as, you didn't wake up when you were a kid and say, I want to be a boxer, right? What did you originally think you were going to become?
No, I never planned on being a boxer. My heart was always, I'd seen that great running back, Jim Brown and Johnny Unitas, the old football players. I wanted to be a football player. But the problem there was you had to go to school. I didn't like school.
Right.
And so my football career didn't develop. And then boxing kind of happened alone When I did finally get on the football team in the Job Corps Center,
Mm-hmm.
got my fingers down in that on your set for that, and one of the coaches said, "No, we can't get your hands hurt. You can be a boxer. We don't want you to get your fingers. Take those fingers in." First time someone had taken notice that I could be a boxer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it all started later on in life. I was a teenager, about 17 years old.
Sure. Wow. Okay. Okay. And I think that's a good testament that you never, I mean, sometimes you have a plan, right? You have a vision, but sometimes something happens and it changes, right?
Everything changes. You have all the plans, then things change all of a sudden. And in the good world, people notice you and decide, you know what? You can do this. You get people to believe in you. The next thing you know, they show you a little thing here and there. You get a little hint, and don't let confidence get in there. Boy, you got a whole world to conquer.
You do. You do. One of the things that I noticed, I watched a recent biography or movie that came out about your life, and I was fascinated by. I wanted to, been dying to ask you this, because I knew we were going to have this. What did it feel like for your first defeat, major defeat, right? When you lost, how did you? What was going through your mind?
In boxing, because I'd put so much effort in winning and thought so much of winning that it really formatted me. I mean, I became another man.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, defeat get into that. It deflates everything. And it knocks you off. You don't even know how to walk anymore or talk anymore, because everything was about victory.
Mm-hmm.
Defeat can tear you down. And it took a long time for me to recover from that defeat,
Mm-hmm.
because it just didn't happen boxing record. It happened to me as a human being.
Right. And I think a lot of people that are in business could share that same sentiment, right? Because some years are good. I know a lot of people that had some challenges in the last 3 years as business owners, right? COVID, affected a lot of businesses, and would you agree there's a parallel there? Right?
That's right. When you start, you're going up, you're winning, and then everybody, you hear all the time in life, it's not winning, it's how you play the game.
How you play the game.
Not winning and losing, but how you play the game. We say that as kids, then all of a sudden you have to live that, and it can be devastating.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in business, because everybody think that's the end of me.
Right.
I'll never be anymore.
Right.
Which is a joke in the same way as a boxing match.
You think it made you stronger?
I think I
Coming
became
back
a
from
better person, because then all of a sudden to prepare not only for winning, prepare to lose, to start all over again.
Right.
You look up the most embarrassing thing in a boxing match, you get knocked down, and then you get up, but right beside you are ropes to hold on to. You can just reach out and pull yourself up, but it's embarrassing. In reality, I learned this. I don't care how embarrassing it is. I may have to pull myself
It's going to
up,
help you.
but I'm getting up. It's easier to pull and get some help from the side. And so, and in the business world, you have to learn to just put your hands out there and pull yourself up.
You do.
And then as you do, people applaud, you get up and you got help. All of a sudden there's help to do it again.
Yeah. No, amen. Tell me about, I thought it was fascinating. I obviously, I'm 43 years old, so I didn't get the pleasure to see some of those early days, but I did get the pleasure to see the great comeback. And that's a memory I have with my father. My father recently passed away about 2 years ago, but we were there for that fight, my father and I. So this is a dream come true, if you will, to pick your brain. But talk a little bit about how would you define the relationship you had with Muhammad Ali?
I had a good friendship. If you're going to be a boxer,
Right.
I started off boxing, of course. He was in exile.
Mm-hmm.
I won an Olympic gold medal and fought my way all the way up to the top contender. Then he came back into boxing. So there was a little Muhammad Ali, and then there wasn't any Muhammad Ali. But I met him for the first time, one of the most exciting human beings I'd ever met in my life. Became friends. But then when it's time to face him in the ring, he became my most, he was an enemy. That's all there is to it, an enemy.
Was it more though was it more for the cameras and the hype, or was that truly a feeling? between you two when leading up to the fight? Because you were friends prior, correct?
Well, you in the ring, there's two ways to take it on as a profession. You get to be a professional boxer, and then some people psych themselves up for a boxing match, but I psyched myself up for life. I really want to go into the ring and beat everybody. And if someone decides, I want to fight George, you instantly became my enemy. And because of that, Muhammad and he was my enemy, although he didn't dislike me. But I disliked him, not only him, but 10 more of the top 10 contenders.
I see.
I equally disliked.
Yeah. And, did the friendship develop even closer after boxing life?
Yeah, I left boxing. I was out of boxing for 10 years. And of course, I became a minister, of which I still am. And I travel all over the country. And a couple of times you sit down and you think about some of the wonderful people you've met in your life. And I thought, boy, this could have been a great friendship. Muhammad Ali with myself, because he was a jokester. He was the most friendly guy, beloved human being. And during the 10 years that I was out of boxing, we made such a great friendship.
Really?
I love the guy to this day. He's gone, but I still love him.
Yeah. Those years when you became a minister, did you feel like that was a calling, right? Like, did you feel like that was something that, because you obviously took time off and you
10 years.
10
I
years.
didn't box anymore.
Right.
Became an evangelist. Preach on the street corners, trying to stop people. And you try to wash everything out of your past so you can start new. But I cut my mustache. My afro was gone. No one knew who I was. I was a 300-pounder on the street corner. Then one day I stopped and said, yes, I fought Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali. And people stopped. And I said, boy, these were important people in events in my life. And I made use of them, embraced them. And they became my cherished memories, the memories I cherishable,
Sure. And you still do that today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get a chance to get out on the streets anymore, but I'm in church every day.
Absolutely. Amen. What made you go back into boxing, right? Like, what were some catalysts that caused you to get back in the ring?
Most profound event ever, I became broke. And you look up, I'm a middle-aged man now, left boxing, left everything, and you look up one day and you don't have money. And you say to yourself, what do I do? What can I do? And you decide the only thing you can do is what you really can do. I was a boxer. I had to go back into business, set up office, travel over the country, and even open my big mouth to talk about winning and losing. I'm going to win. And it was hard for me because I didn't want to be a boxer anymore at all. I did not.
If that event didn't happen, the circumstances, right, which caused that, which we don't have to get into, but you never would have went back.
Never would have gone back into boxing at all. I mean, I'd run around with my shirt buttoned up top. Everybody called me Brother George. I never intended to box again. But there you are, and I had all these kids people laugh about all the time. George, you named all your sons George, 5. That's an easy thing to do, name and have kids. But when you have the responsibility of feeding and educating kids, you got to work. And there's nothing you can say about it. You can't take an excuse. No excuses can. Oh, I lost this, and you got to go to work.
You do, and
that's what I had to do.
And you had to just do it. You had to go back to what you knew.
I knew boxing, and I knew it well. I didn't, and beforehand, I kind of disliked it, but hey, I'd learned a lot about boxing, more than anybody else around. As a better manager, a better boxer, better trainer. Inside of me was all of that.
I shared, I can relate to that because I never graduated college. I dropped out of college when I was first semester. The school wasn't for me.
You're still young enough.
You still could. But I started my first business. But what put the pressure on me is I had a child. And there's no greater motivator than knowing that you got to feed that mouth there, right? So I relate to that a little bit. I mean, you had 5. I only had 1, but yeah.
When I'd gone back, I have a total of 10 kids,
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, boy, that means work.
So when you got back into the ring, did you find that there was there was a lot of naysayers, I would imagine, right? Oh, what is, he's never gonna, how is he gonna be successful, right? Did you feel a lot of that in the community? Were they doubting you?
There was a lot of doubt. I'd read in the newspaper, George Foreman will never be the prodigal son of boxing as long as he's looking like the fatted calf. I'd blown up to 315 pounds.
What was your weight before in your,
I left boxing, I was like 217 when I won the championship of the world.
Right.
And I'd go from 217 to 220 and stuff like that. But this time, 10 years out of boxing, I discovered fast food chains. I didn't eat any of those things in my original career. I had to lay off everything. But now, after 1 year, I realized you could eat anything you want. You can enjoy life. And boy, all I could wear were overalls. I was a big man.
Wow.
Big man. So people made jokes. You'll never be able to do it, and they were right.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't do it. You're going to get hurt. All of that comes with the package. But I never lost confidence in what I knew.
And what you knew, yeah. And you think it was all those years of winning, and then some of the losses that kind of helped you get through those naysayers. You kind of have like a hardened, mindset, right?
Yeah, and I working with children. I started a youth center.
Mm-hmm.
My brother Roy and I in Houston, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And we were really trying to rescue kids. I was, because I'd gone into the ministry and I'd forgot about everything else. These kids, send them to church, but kids weren't coming to church. So I started a youth center. There was so many angry kids. Trying to explain to them, you don't have to steal, you don't have to break in, you don't have to do this. So they'd come in the gym with a chip on their shoulder. Mm-hmm. And I taught them the doctrine of never a punch in anger. And while teaching them, I learned myself that I could be a good boxer. And I didn't need anger anymore. Mm-hmm. They didn't need anger, nor did I. But the blessing was teaching others. I learned myself.
And do you think it's learning how to channel that anger into positive?
You don't even need anger.
Yeah.
Anger is something that's unnecessary because you lose your cool and you lose everything else. So I reconstructed my whole life as a boxer now. To go back into the ring, there was no killer instinct. I don't know how that word had come about anyway, those words. Mm-hmm. It was about winning, and boxing was an honorable profession, and that it was a good thing that I had found it.
What was the toughest match you ever had?
I had a lot of tough matches. Mm-hmm. I wish there were one I could single out, but I'd lost the title to the great Muhammad Ali, and I made a comeback fighting Ron Lyle. Mm-hmm. And so he hit me so hard it didn't hurt. So I'm on the canvas there, being slammed to the canvas by Ron Lyle. Couldn't believe it. And I sat there and thought about, I don't have any excuses. It's not too late. I'm not in Africa. No one put anything to my food. I had to get up. Mm-hmm. And that was tough. He knocked me down again. Mm-hmm. And I decided, look, I'm going to be a boxer. I'm just going to have to get up. I'm going to have to get up and I'm going to have to fight. Mm-hmm. That was hard. Mm-hmm. I fought. And I don't really think I beat him. It's just that he was not prepared to see a guy keep getting up, fighting him like that.
That could be a psychological.
So he made a decision and it was like, I quit.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the toughest fight in my life.
Wow.
Toughest boxing match I had.
So of course, I have to ask you about this because I watched the fight. I mean, this was one of the ones I have a memory of my father. My father loved you. He was a big George Foreman fan. On and off the ring, how you were and how you conduct yourself. But I remember distinctly the great comeback fight when you regained the championship. Did you were down, right? You were down. You had no choice but to knock out.
If you look at there are different ways to look at a boxing match.
Yeah.
I like the way you looked at it, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But it was a 12-round fight. Mm-hmm. Michael Moore was ahead on points. That's for certain.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, did that 10th round, right? It was the 10th round.
It was the 10th round.
Did you just know you had to do what you had to do in order to win this, or did your coach at the time, your trainer, put any words of wisdom into you going into that 10th round, or curious?
Like I said, boxing is something I knew. I really knew. I found out a lot about boxing. 10 years out of boxing, you even become even more smart about the sport. And so I trained up in that ring for that boxing match for months and months, changing sports, and I started to execute some of the things I've been practicing. It was about the 9th round, and I decided, look, Angelo Dundee said, look, you're behind. And that angered me that he would even upset me that he would even mention that I'm behind. I said, okay. So the 10th round, I go out and do some of the things I've been practicing months and months before, leading with the right hand, coming back with the left hook, leading with the right, and then the guy expected me to come in another direction, and I came with the big straight 1-2 punch, the old 1-2.
Mm-hmm.
The old 1-2 is about as old as John L. Sullivan. That goes that far back, the old 1-2. Every palooka knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what won the boxing match, the old 1-2.
Were you surprised? Did you realize how hard you hit him? Because I heard stories that he broke his, you hit him so hard that he chewed through his guard.
Mouthpiece, split his mouth.
Did you realize that? Or you think he'd get back up?
No, once I hit him, I knew he was not getting back up. Yeah. Remember, I'd been boxing so many years, and I was 17 years old, and I realized I was not the most skillful guy, not because I couldn't get skill, it's because I had such power.
Right.
And I could terminate a boxing match anytime I zeroed in on my opponent. So I knew about knockout power.
Well, yeah.
So I wasn't shocked when I knocked him down.
Right.
I wasn't surprised when I knocked him out. All of that goes along with the package.
Sure.
But this guy was so tough.
Was he?
And so fast. Michael Mora. Woo. He was a champion, a little more of a champion than I thought he was all the time, but he showed me a lot in the ring that night.
Yeah, yeah. Right around the same time, and I don't know if it was a little before or after, but leading into the business career, the George Foreman grill. Everybody had one. I had one. My father had one. Did you think it was going to be as successful as it made out to be? I mean, when you first got encountered with that opportunity?
Not at all. The George Foreman grill, I thought when this thing was presented to me, it was my wife's idea. Hey, George, it's a good deal. Mm-hmm. I said, no, I don't think I'm going to do that because no one was offering any money. I'd been the darling of Madison Avenue, Kentucky Fried, Pepsi Cola, all of these things I endorsed and made a lot of money. Then the grill presented itself as a joint venture. Mm-hmm. But you're making all this money for other companies, why not make money for yourself? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of scary. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, I'm going to make it work. And so I went out to work for this George Foreman grill. My wife decided it was the best thing in the world because it really did work.
It does work.
Grease would go away, and for your protein, flavorful, and you didn't have to leave it on for long. Mm-hmm. And people would tell me, look, I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me to get a George Foreman. I said, George Foreman? Oh, the grill.
Right.
One thing after another, start selling. One guy told me, I think you sold 10,000 of those things, George. I said, what?
Wow.
Then it's 10 million. Mm. And then the last, before we sold the grill was like 120 million of those things sold worldwide. I thought maybe I'd get 16, that I'd give one to my aunt, one to my cousin and my mom, and then I'd take them to training camp, but I had no idea this thing would be so successful. But the idea is that I went to work for the grill. The thing is, reporters made jokes of me, George Foreman will never be champion of the world as long as his training camp is next to Baskin-Robbins.
Yeah.
I said, and he'll never. How can he be champ of the world and if he's going to be the king of the cheeseburgers?
Right. Right.
Then they'd ask me to rate all the hamburgers in the country. And they, just like rating boxers, I rated hamburgers. So I was so associated with hamburgers.
It's food.
That it was a natural thing, that something that would make burgers would be the thing for me. But the grill was just something that sat there. I didn't want to do it, and my wife insisted.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was obviously largely successful, In wrapping up this interview, I'm going to ask you really one last question for our viewership, and I thank you for your time. What would be the best advice you can give somebody that is maybe in some of those predicaments where they're down, they get knocked down, whether in business, whether in anything, or just in life in general? What's some of the best advice you can give in terms of mindset?
Well, just like in a boxing ring, you got all these people in your corner. Sometimes you get hit so hard that you can't even see. You look at the guy and you see 5 of one, and you just got to swing at every one of them. Sooner or later, you'll hit the right one. And you go back to your corner, and you just want to quit. You want to go home. And you're looking for someone. Hopefully, your mother would even jump up and say, "Let my baby out of this." But you're just going to have to sit there and answer the next bell. And that's what I found that brought success for me in everything I've tried, is to answer the next bell. Bing, get up and go.
And just go.
Just get up and go. It hurts, you're sore, you're embarrassed, but you're just gonna have to answer the bell.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great. I think there's not a more fitting comment to end this interview. George, I wanna thank you really from the bottom of my heart for agreeing to do this. It's been a highlight in my life just to meet you personally and have you on here and talk boxing, talk business. There's no two better things to talk about, at least in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Pleasure. All right, well, that wraps it up for this episode in Entrepreneurs in Finance. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you, everybody.
There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. People always say, "Kris, how can I be a successful broker?" It's 2 words: hard work and dedication. If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business.